television. It's head-first only television.
Ta-da! New webcam, new setup, new lighting, new everything. I can see the floor. Good evening. It's 7:30 on Thursday, the 2nd of July. So, happy Canada Day for yesterday, eh? Sorry I missed it by a day, but if anybody here is watching in Canada, hello. I have been moving kit round and I have upset some of my equipment. I have a TC Helicon mic mechanic, which basically acts as a compressor, a de-esser, an auto tuner, an echo, a reverb, and a bunch of other stuff on my microphone feed. And it's worked like a charm for the last 3-4 years, and I've plugged it into a different socket and now it's started switching itself on arbitrarily. So if I suddenly go all slap back echoey, it's not intentional, it's the TC Helicon doing strange things. Mel says, looks good, this is such a nice setup. I am, and David says hello to you too. Thank you. Yeah, it's taken me a while to get here, but I've just been spending the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks now, tweaking things round. So, I mean, if I show you the main view, you can see that I have tilted and spaced out a lot of the, well, all of the synths, because I couldn't actually see what patch I was on. You can also see there's a lot more floor visible than there was. I've been tidying up left, right and centre. How sad is this? I have even labelled all the 13 amp 3-pin plugs on my power boards to identify what channel is which. David says, is that a theremin? It is indeed. It's a Moog Etherwave. Hang on a sec. I've wanted one since I was a kid. One of the first, David says, play it. You sure? I'm going to have to find the lead. We'll do that in a minute. Yeah, I've wanted one ever since I saw, as a very small boy, the 1950s science fiction B movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still, which had one of the greatest film scores in history by a composer called Bernard Herrmann, who worked an awful lot with Alfred Hitchcock until they fell out rather spectacularly. Herrmann made great use of the theremin, and in Los Angeles there weren't exactly a lot of theremin players around. In fact, the Los Angeles Musicians Union roster had one theremin player, and he was, well, by profession he was a podiatrist, he was a foot doctor, but he'd grown up playing in big bands in New York in the 1930s, in which he played a bewildering variety of instruments and included the theremin in his roster of strange instruments that he had available for sessions. So when he moved to LA, he signed up and put the theremin in, and Bernard Herrmann saw him and got very upset because I think it was Miklos Rocha one of the other composers that that Hitchcock used had actually used this podiatrist whose name was Dr. Sam Hoffman on one of his scores, and there's this whole thing about which was recorded first and which was actually released first, because there's one in Hitchcock's Psycho, but it was Herman's score for The Day the Earth Stood Still that really got me paying attention to what music and film could do together. Mel says, to be fair, Hitchcock could be a pervy arse. Hitchcock was a bastard. He really was. He killed Tippi Hedren's career when she stood up to him in filming The Birds. And she never really got the fame and fortune she deserved as a result of saying no to Alfred. So, yeah, he was a bastard. But good God, he could make amazing films. And if you've never seen Vertigo, of all of Hitchcock's films, that's the one that blows me away. Highly recommended watching it. Anyway, before we carry on, housekeeping. So, happy Canada Day for yesterday. Let's go back to the main one. Right, I'll come on to the camera in a second, because even that's got a story. Yeah, it's Thursday the 2nd of July. Oh my God, it's July. Oh, listen. Can you tell the mic mechanic's done its thing again?
Stop it.
Right. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel where this will be appearing in perpetuity after tonight's broadcast, then please subscribe. Please click the little bell icon or whatever it is that appears down there somewhere to be notified when I put a new video up, which I seem to be doing quite regularly, and they're going to be happening more regularly in the future, and we'll come to that in a minute. So please click on the thumbs up to like the video if you're watching this on YouTube, because that helps me fight the overwhelming and never-ending struggle against the tyranny of the viewer attention algorithm on YouTube. The longer you watch, the happier I will be. So please keep this stream running if you're watching on YouTube, because it's all good for me, even if you're not paying attention. Although I would really like it if you were paying attention, please. Right, gear update, which comes to this. The cheap Chinese webcam that melted last time, I actually managed to resurrect, and that's basically going to be my backup camera downstairs, where it is currently 8 degrees cooler than it is in here. It's 28 degrees Celsius in here at the moment, which is quite mild compared with what it has been of late. It's actually a lovely day out there now, but it was chucking it down about an hour ago. Array of Emotions says, make all the SF noises. Yeah, I will. I promise. I will make silly noises with the theremin just for you, David. Mel says, to be fair, Hitchcock could be a pervy arse. Why are so many geniuses such arseholes? Yeah, that's kind of problematic. I don't know whether it's because the arsehole ones are the ones that are not only geniuses but successful. So there's that balance of, you can be a genius but not get anywhere. But it's the ones who are arseholes who have the drive to run film studios or build electric car factories or whatever else. So who knows? And David says, yeah, the YouTube algorithm is pretty shit now. For something they keep secret, it's pretty darn irritating, but such is life. Anyway, Chinese webcam downstairs. What have I got instead? Well, I was originally going to treat myself and buy myself a nice shiny spiffy GoPro and all the doobries and mounts and, handlebar things and, hang from ceiling attachments that you can get with the GoPro, because GoPro. And then I started researching what it would need to act as a webcam. So if I bought the latest model GoPro, which is the Hero 8, the different brands, you only get the option to take the batteries out and replace them with the most expensive one, which is the Hero 8 Black. The Hero 7 Black has an HDMI output so that you can put it into a hit the microphone. So you can put it into a stream box and then pipe it into a USB input in the computer. So that means you can use it as a webcam. Hero 8 doesn't. You have to buy an extra piece of kit called the Media Mod, which adds an HDMI socket to a frame that goes round the GoPro camera. GoPros might be in stock. There's an 8 to 10 week wait for getting a Media Mod. Then you've got to spend another £100 on getting a decent, reliable HDMI to USB signal converter. I mean, you can get the little ones for £12 that plug into your USB socket, but will they last as long as my Chinese webcam? Who knows? So at this point, seeing the price of putting something together to replace a £20 webcam that I had, I was beginning to look at somewhere on the order of £500. And for someone who is pretty much retired now, that's not a viable option. So I had a look round on the web. Given that the Zoom Q8 that I got over there on its tripod was the only camera that kept working when it was 34 degrees in here, it was like, wonder if Zoom have got anything cheaper than that I could use instead. They had. It's called the Zoom QN. Not only does it act as a pretty darn good webcam, as you can see by this support, which is, I assure you, straight, it has a very, very wide angle of vision, which was perfect for this session. I mean, you can even see my lava lamp this week. I put it on specially. Yeah, it picks up the whole desk. It picks up everything. It looks like the vision HAL has of the astronauts in 2001. So that was instant response of, oh, I like this. And it was 20% of the cost of the GoPro. Yeah. So I went with the Zoom Q2N. Did I mention it doesn't need fancy, expensive lithium rechargeable batteries? It runs on a couple of AAs. It also runs with no batteries whatsoever if you plug it into a USB cable into the PC, which is how I've got it at the moment. And it also acts as a 4K resolution camcorder. And the day it arrived, I went straight out and tried out the 4K video option on it. Wow. So, yeah, I am very, very pleased with the Q2N 4K. So David says, did you get the 4K of the regular? Yeah, get the 4K one. And it's tiny. It's the size of a pack of cigarettes. So I am very, very pleased with it. And well done, Zoom, once again, for helping me out and providing me with exactly the kit that I needed. I did stump up an additional £10 for a action camera handlebar mount because the GoPro is, rather than stuck on the Niwa light stand, which is behind it. So that's the Q2N there. Rather than it sticking on the Niwa ring light mount, which, because it's so wide angle, it was showing the side of my my monitor and my monitor. I just clamped it to the bed and it's in the perfect position, and it's also not immediately under a mattress, so hopefully it ain't going to overheat. Yeah, David, if you're looking for a camera for Mel, and Mel, if you're looking for a camera, I really recommend it. I'm very pleased with it. It only streams in 720p. If that's an issue, then maybe go for one of the Logitech webcams instead, because their higher end ones actually do stream in 1080. And I'm losing my voice, so I'm just going to have a quick hydration break. Since I got diagnosed with kidney stones, my doc says I have to drink 2.5 litres of fluids a day. So these are 800 millilitres or whatever, it's 0.8 of a litre. So I need to do at least 3 of these a day, and this is my third. Ah, bottoms up, David says. Indeed. The reason why my voice might be giving out is that I've spent today having great fun trying out the Shure SM7B and recording some audio for a friend's podcast. So Laura, who was She Makes War and is now Pen Friend, has a new website at penfriend.rocks. Please go check it out. Please go and join the Correspondence Club. Please check out her music, because she's a brilliant artist, totally independent, does everything pretty much herself, and her husband helps out. And she's brilliant. And she's been running a question and answer session with people in the Correspondence Club of the Pen Friend Forum. And I spent a really enjoyable afternoon recording my responses. So that will be on Laura's Attention Engineer podcast, which you can subscribe to on all your main podcast providers. Okay, so I've covered housekeeping, covered the gear update. Have I covered the gear update? Yeah, more or less. I've been niggled by things, not just by the mic mechanic, but when I was doing some voiceover a couple of days ago, my KRK headphones, which I've had for about 6 or 7 years. I mean, they weren't cheap. They're really good headphones. They're closed back, which is what you need if you're recording vocals, because there's no bleed through the back. But the head pads were covered in this sort of faux leather neoprene stuff. And as all of these things tend to do, after about 5 or 6 years, they start biodegrading. So when I finished up in the studio a few days ago, I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth and wondered why my head was covered in loads and loads of black bits of sticky stuff. They fall apart, says Mel. They do fall apart. So that's now stuck back together with gaffer tape. And I even ordered a replacement part. You do not want to know how much 2 little foam pads for a set of KRK headphones cost me, because it was ridiculous. Next time, I'm just going to use the gaffer tape straight away and make do. Okay. So hopefully it's cooler in here. It's stuck at 28 degrees. I shouldn't overheat anything today, so that means that with any luck my Logitech webcam is working. Yes, it is. You can see that's already fired up with Ableton. So before we get onto the music thing, one last piece of housekeeping, and that is it's July. And because it's July, that means that it's time for not February album writing month, which I do every February, strangely enough, because where else would you do it? In fact, let's do that the other way around. So this is February album writing month's website, where you have to write 14 songs in 28 days. And Mel says, I really love that you have notes. I'm old and my memory is not what it was. And there are things that I want to cover, and I'll otherwise be lying in bed at midnight tonight going, bloody hell, I forgot to mention that. So I have notes, yes. In fact, not only have I notes, from next week I now have a dedicated spiral-bound notebook. Why have I taken that step? Well, I'm glad you ask. Because although February album writing month is over, and if I scroll down on the February album writing month landing page and hide my webcam, does that set of keyboards look at all familiar to you? Or perhaps even that little clock in the middle of the picture? or even that Aria Stagecaster on the right. It ought to, because that's here. I was very chuffed about 10 years ago that the folks at Form picked a photo that I put on Flickr of my Form setup and used it for the Form website, and it's been there ever since. So very happy with that. No, instead of Form, I want to talk a little bit about Form's bigger but slightly more retiring brother, 5090, the 5090 challenge. As you see, it's 50 songs in 90 days. It starts on Saturday, the 4th of July. From Saturday, the 4th of July to whatever day of the week the 1st of October is, the challenge is... David's being very unkind about the web design, but then David is a web designer. Yeah, between 4th of July and 1st of October, the challenge is to write 50 songs in 90 days. It's a challenge that I've done every year for the last, I think it's 6 or 7 years now. And I have great fun doing it. A lot of my friends from Form do it. Not everybody takes part with the intent of doing a full 50 songs, but it's a great way if you're a songwriter or a musician, even if you just record instrumentals, if you want honest critiques of what you're doing and maybe ideas on how you could do it better, then taking part in 5090 and February Album Writing Month, I can't recommend them highly enough. They are spectacularly good fun if you participate. So it's not just about getting comments on your songs. It's about listening to other people's songs and getting your comments through on those songs as well. It's just huge fun, and I am really looking forward to Saturday when things kick off. Which is why I am going to start streaming on Sunday evenings as well. I'll probably do them at 9 p.m. BST, so that's 10 p.m. Central European time. It's, what's that? That's 4 p.m. Eastern. So I hope that will be a more practical time for American viewers to tune in. I would really dearly like more followers. I think I'm up to 9 followers now. I would really like more than that. I'd really like people to tune in and say hi, because I'm kind of doing this to give something back to the 5090 community and the Form community that has helped me so much. I wouldn't be the musician or the songwriter I am now without the support of those websites. So, on Sundays, I'm basically going to be focusing on working on 5090 songs. So it'll be a lot more practical, possibly a little bit more simplistic, certainly a lot more focused than these rambling affairs tend to be, where a lot of the time I'm just making it up on the spot. So rather than reams of notes that I've got for tonight's show, which I've kind of covered, I've just got some basics which I'm gonna hit on my Sunday night show. So the sort of things that I'm going to do. Oh, Mel says, I love your rambling. That's very sweet of you, Mel. Thank you. I'm well aware that all of this is not normal for somebody doing Form or 5090. I am well aware that I'm in a very, very privileged position to have all of this kit available. I have spent 40 years basically obsessing about music, and I've been very lucky in being able to pick up a lot of this gear second hand or third hand. So that Marshall stack its previous owner was a gentleman called John Sykes, who used it on stage with a band he was playing in at the time called Thin Lizzy. And I picked up that whole Marshall stack, I kid you not, for 200 quid. The reason was that when I worked in London, one of my colleagues ran a side hustle renovating jukeboxes, and his partner in the business turned out to be Thin Lizzy's road manager. So when Thin Lizzy's lead frontman, bassist, singer, legend Phil Lynott died and they wound the business up, my colleague came in one Friday and said, "You play guitar, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "All right." Gave me an address in Paddington, which turned out to be an industrial lockup, and said, "Bring your car, come here on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Okay. So I did, at which point I got to meet Thin Lizzy's road manager, and he said, "Look, all of this is going up for auction, but I know you are obsessed with music, and I'd like at least some of this stuff to go to a good home, to somebody who's really going to appreciate it." So he opened the doors of this lockup, which had Thin Lizzy's entire road gear, absolutely everything, all the lightning backdrops from the Thunder and Lightning tour, drum kits, risers, amps, flight cases, the lot. And he turned to me and he said, "What would you like?" So that's how I got that. So David says, "Do you ever turn it on?" Not very loudly. In fact, when I record in here, it's normally turned to about 0.5. Forget all this going up to 11 rubbish. 0.5 is about all I can manage in here. I have a little piece of kit which is basically a toaster with a jack plug at either end, which is a power sink made by a company called Altair. And the idea is that it's just a whacking great resistor that you put in line with the speakers, so you can wind the amplifier gain up and get the nice, gorgeous overload that Marshalls are notorious and famous for, without alienating your neighbours. I don't even know if my current neighbours know I've got this, but basically I don't have any trouble with noise from any of my neighbours, because in terms of the strategic arms race going on in here, I win. When I used to rehearse in band spaces, took that along and discovered that on 10, if you point it at a table that's not been cleared up in the pub, you can blow crisp packets off a table at a distance of 15 feet, which is kind of impressive, but not good for the ears in here. So I don't do that. And to be honest, the little Black Star amp that I have under the desk here has lots of big amp emulation software and circuitry in it. And so does my Zoom multi-effects pedal. So I can get more or less the same sort of sound without leveling or blowing the windows out or leveling the building. So David says nice and Mel says LOL. Yeah, it's nice to have. But yeah, so most of the equipment in here is secondhand. Most of it, the Juno 106 I bought off a colleague at work when he basically had kids and couldn't do the music anymore. I paid 100 quid for it. I had a look on eBay to see how much Juno 106s are going for, and the cheapest one I could find was going for 1,100 quid, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's double what they were when they were new. So I did a test of the current setup and it's on YouTube. You can watch it. It's called Ironing Out the Bugs. I'll put the link down here as a subtitle for the YouTube stream. Well, if you're watching it on YouTube, you're basically going to see it because it's the previous video, so maybe not. performed an old song of mine called Cinnamon that I wrote for Form in 2014. It's done it again. Very odd. If anybody's got any ideas why that mic mechanic should suddenly... I wonder if the switch probably needs a quick squirt of service oil, because I would imagine what's happened is dust's got in it and the contact's sticking. So, David says, you are back to wedding DJ voice. Yes, I think I'll get the service oil out when we've finished and see if that helps. There are some very nice effects, it has to be said, on the mic mechanic, but none of them are practical for doing this sort of stuff. Mel says, everyone do the Macarena. I used to know that because the twins made me do it. Hello, Rob and Ruth, if you're watching on YouTube at some point. Yeah. Stick to the thread, Chris. So, yes. 5090. Making a start on 5090. If you're new to 5090, if you've never recorded songs to release into the wide world in your life before, if you haven't the faintest idea what to do or how to go about it, or what software to use, or will it work on your phone, then Sunday Stream is for you. So I'll be covering things like making the results as good as they can be, about sounding good without breaking the bank, and preferably without spending any money at all, because, like I say, I'm nearly retired. Production tips on a zero budget. How do you make your stuff sound good? What's going to wreck your sound? Where do you get your ideas from? In my case, it's a small shed just outside Cirencester on the A433. Yeah, maybe not. Overcoming creative blocks. I'll be covering some music techniques. One that I learnt a lot of as a result of getting into the music of Nick Zamuto and his glorious but sadly now defunct band, The Books, who specialised in aleatoric music, where they would, which literally means alia is Latin for dice. So it means at the throw of a dice. So it's introducing random events into the creative process, which fascinates me. And there are a couple of guys, hello Paul, in 5090 and Form, who are really into aleatoric music and produce some really interesting results. I'll also cover, there are all sorts of other things you can use for inspiration. I even know one guy who makes it a challenge to write a song on whatever subject he is given when he clicks on the random page function on Wikipedia. How cool is that? I might have a go on that this year. So I'll talk about hardware because I'm a hardware nerd. I've got rather a lot of it. I'll also talk about software. And if we go back to my 5090 thread, if I can find where it is, hang on a second, let's show you the screen. See, as 5090 is now only a couple of days away, suddenly the 5090 site is getting very, very, very busy, which is lovely to see. So, there we go. There is a topic on the Form forums called Free VSTs to Pimp Out Your Digital Audio Workstation. This is a thread that I started, so it's basically a one-stop shop for finding free stuff on the internet that you can use to record stuff for your music. highly recommend some of the plugins that other people have recommended. If I scroll down a bit, who was it? It was Spenhead. The Valhalla Reverb. Holy cow. So that's valhalladsp.com/shop/ back to wedding DJ /shop/reverb Valhalla-Supermassive. Holy cow. What a reverb. And it's free. It's so good that I have used it on a track. So I will play you an example of that in a second. Okay, so lots of resources, lots of hardware discussion, lots of software discussion, doing things on the cheap, doing things for free. You don't have to buy immense roomfuls of kit like this or spend 40 years doing it, because why would you? These days, your laptop will do it. Then I'm going to talk about process, which is kind of one of the things that both Mel as Ryako Music does on her streams on Wednesday evenings, which happen at 9 o'clock Central European Time, 8 o'clock British Summertime. Mel's currently talking us through how she's done a new score for Fritz Lang's 1927 movie Metropolis, and it's fascinating, and it's one of my favourite films. And yeah, I highly recommend tuning into Mel's. I mean, she's got more followers and viewers than I've got anyway, so yeah, anyway. So we'll cover process, and then we'll cover producing, because I'm a producer nerd. You know, I've got all this stuff. I'm still learning how to use it. I noticed today, I mean, okay, the mixer is...
Stop it!
The mixer is new. The mixer is new, and I noticed today that the stereo pair channels on the mixer don't all behave the same way. In fact, two of them have got the rotary dials here for gain on the input, with unity at the 12 o'clock position. So I'd just set all, I'd not thought about it, and just set all four at the same 12 o'clock position. I've just noticed this evening in setting up for this live stream that channels 15 and 16 and 17 and 18 have unity gain set at the 7 o'clock position. Why? Who knows? Anyway. Mel says, thanks for the shout out. Bitch, I wear pink dresses, and has a kick-ass. It's not a chair. Mortal live streamers have chairs. Mel has a throne. Watch the stream next week. You will see. Okay, so I've covered that. One page of notes done. Hooray. Have I covered that? Second page of notes done. Hooray. So... now we're into uncharted territory. Now shit gets real. What I'm going to do now is, if you remember, casting your eyes back to 2 weeks ago, I recorded a piece of music using the Korg M3. You're right, it's done it again. It's just... I might have to resort to a bit of percussive maintenance. Okay, 2 weeks ago I recorded a very, very simple piece of music using the Korg M3. And just to remind you what it sounded like, the basic track sounded like this. Okay, so that was what I had at the end of the live stream 2 weeks ago, I think it was. As you can see, I've been kind of busy because I have gone down the rabbit hole of the Spitfire Audio BBC. Right, you may be able to hear a crackling noise. That isn't the mic mechanic, that is something else. Bear with me a second. It's my JX3P, which is definitely showing its age, but I know exactly what causes it, so it's easy to fix. Should have stopped. No, it's still there, isn't it? Hang on a sec. Better? Should be better. Yeah, I can't hear it now. Yep, that's killed it, David says. Thank you. Brilliant. What a relief. Yeah, some of this stuff is showing its age. This is the disadvantage of buying second-hand kit, although I've had the JX3P since it was new. So, back to the BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package, which is available free if you fill out a questionnaire at Spitfire Audio. And 2 weeks later, they will give you download rights to the app in their Spitfire Audio app, which will install it as a VST in your digital audio workstation of choice. Mine is Ableton. I downloaded a template, which this is, so it's basically a live set of everything in the Spitfire Audio BBC Symphony Orchestra Discover package, all configured separately and ready to go. I haven't used everything because that would be silly, but I have used an awful lot of it. I'm really getting into orchestral arrangements. It's not something I would ever have seen myself doing at any point, because where would I ever get access to scoring for a full orchestra? I mean, the Korg's got a very nice orchestra patch, but you know, there are only 88 keys on the Korg, and if you want each of the violin sections and each of the horn sections and each of the woodwinds doing different things, I've only got 4 fingers and 2 thumbs. So going into what you can do in Spitfire Audio, and I'm still learning, and there are still wobbly bits in this that I know are wrong and that I need fixing. But after I spent a couple of days working on this, I just played it back with my jaw on the floor. It's like, how the hell have I done this in a little room that's, what, about 8 feet by 10 feet? Astonishing. But at the time I did the Korg M3 run through a couple of weeks ago, I said, yeah, I need to work on this because I didn't know what the song wanted to be. I didn't know what it was trying to say. I'd called it Anxiety Dreams because I suffer from those terribly. As anyone who has heard me talk about my mental health will know, my mental health's not brilliant, and I'm totally open about that, but I do suffer with the most bizarre anxiety dreams on a regular basis. So given that this album is about, well, it's called The Geometry of Sleep, it's about getting or failing to get a good night's sleep. Anxiety dreams are a big part of that. So what it turned out to be, the answer or the key that helped me unlock the soul of the song, as it was just messing about with the Juno 106 after I'd rearranged the keyboard so I could actually see the controls, because before the stack was so close together that I couldn't actually do more than, you know, slide my hand in underneath the JX3P and feel the faders. Ooh, her misses. That's not the case now. Mel says I was messing around with Spitfire and it's a bit hard on my CPU. I haven't really noticed it too much, Mel. I mean, the fact that I've got, God knows how many, 23 different instances of it running in this template. So it can't be hammering me that bad. But there again, my machine's a lot younger than your 2012 MacBook. So yeah, maybe we'll chat about that offline, and I'll see if we can figure out what's going on. So yeah, I was playing around with the Juno and fiddling around with the controls on it, and ended up making very strange noises indeed, which I then threw through my go-to strange noise machine setup, which is Isotope's Trash 2 delay, which does really seriously nasty things to your audio signal. It's brilliant. And Beat Repeat, which is one of my favorite little tools for messing things up in Ableton. It basically chops every bar into bits and then rearranges them on a random basis. And this one's set to do that randomly about 45.2% of the time. So what was the sound that I ended up making? Well, I thought you'd never ask. It sounds like this. So it's part racing car, part rising tension. Mel says her machine's even older. It was 2011. Wow. Yeah, that's probably going to struggle with most things, I'm afraid. Okay, so we've got a very weird sound. We've got the... yeah, Mel says it's like a sci-fi, right? I said it's exactly what it is. How does that sound mixed in with a bunch of classical instruments and one or two other bits and pieces as well? Well, I started off with one of Ableton's samples, which is basically a malfunctioning transistor radio, because that's what my mind's like when I get an anxiety dream. And then we go, well, why don't I just shut up and play you the piece of music? Thank you. Yeah, I'd completely forgotten to unmute the microphone there, hadn't I? So yeah, that's come on quite a bit from where it was. I'm surprised myself with that. I didn't think I was capable of making something that sounded that coherently like an orchestra. So I'm going to work on that a bit more. There are a few things, and it does get very loud, and it may well have been clipping in the middle, although that's probably the output to the door, from the door output to the Zoom rather than anything else. But who knows? I'm still learning everything in this mixer. Mel says why. I don't know, Mel, is the simple answer. It's just discovering what still needs to be done, and what I'm particularly not happy about is that first bit. If I go back, no, wrong one, that one. So this initial section with the clarinet's fine on its own, and I know what I'm trying to do with the flutes and the clarinets together, and I managed to do it at the end, but the end is not the same melody as it is here, and I can't get the two of them to work together. Oh, in reference to the why did I think that? I don't know. Thank you, wedding DJ. I wonder if it seems to be being triggered by loud noises coming through on the mic. Because it is, isn't it? There's something in the circuitry that I've enabled that turns it on. Does it turn on? Or does it turn off again when I shout? Turn off! Screen turn off? No, it doesn't. Was worth a shot. Hang on a sec. There is a mic control push button on the side of the mic mechanic, and I think when I was moving it, I turned it on. Shouldn't do it now. David says, got to admit, every time the echo comes on, it's hilarious. I mean, that is one of the reasons why in the opening credits I go, it's head first only television. Because there is nothing more hilarious than a decent bit of slapback echo. But, I guess again, Mel, and I was talking about this in the piece that I was recording for Laura's podcast this afternoon. It's imposter syndrome kicking in. It's me going, well, yeah, I'm clearly not good enough to do something like this. And then discovering that, hey, actually, I can do this. I might not be good enough, but I can still do it. I might fail at doing it. Somebody who's a professional who would do this would probably fall off their chair laughing at the pitiful efforts that I'm doing, but I don't care. I'm having an amazing time doing this, and I am learning so much. So, yay for Spitfire Audio. So, yeah, I'm gonna gotta tweak those bits, and the way I've been doing it is it's a technique that I haven't used enough. Is you hold the control and I mean, up until a couple of years ago, I didn't even know you could do this. If you hold down the control key, you can solo 2 tracks at once. Now, as a grammar nerd, soloing 2 things makes no sense to me whatsoever, but apparently that's the thing you can do. So if I just solo these 2 instruments, I can listen to them and then cringe at why they are not sounding the way I want them to. Mel says, you didn't know that? Nope. Should read the instructions. Now that will probably take me 2 minutes to fix, but I just haven't got round to it yet. And it's the fact that it's still there, and it's just bugging me. Okay, moving on. Oh, see, this time, no wedding DJ voice. I think we fixed it, folks. I was talking about, and I've just remembered I was talking about it, the Valhalla Reverb. So if you remember, I was having all sorts of problems because I hated I had grown to hate the resonator toy piano that I was using for the lead line on the melody. In the end, I got so annoyed that I just deleted that track completely and went back to the trusty Korg, which has a beautiful, very, very muted, very, very reverberant compressed piano on it, which they call cinematic piano. So if I solo this track and play you it, this is what it sounds like, just dry. So this is just straight out of the Korg. A bit later on. So all the harshness that I was thinking I'd probably have to get rid of with EQ and everything just isn't there in the original signal in this. But after Spinhead posted about the Valhalla Reverb, I went online and basically a couple of days ago I installed everything that's on that 5090 thread onto this machine, and I've been playing with various bits of them. And the Valhalla is absolutely outstanding. So if I drop the Valhalla Reverb onto that same piano piece, this is what it sounds like. It's still going. Still going. Still going. There it is. It's pretty much gone now. I'm in love with that reverb, and it's free. So that's Valhalla DSP. Go and have a look at the website. They've also got another one which is a sort of flanger on steroids. Mel says that reverb is killer, isn't it? You know, so I mean, I was using the exponential audio Nimbus, and that didn't work because I couldn't find a good preset for that. And I was using the exponential audio R4 reverb, which is, I mean, they're both, you know, I got them as part of a bundle, and I was very lucky to get them at the price that I did, but they were not cheap reverbs. And this free reverb from Valhalla just blows it out of the water. It's perfect for the sort of music that, I mean, that is all right. My dream reverb, and I've used it once or twice. There's a sort of reverb that you can get called a convolution reverb, which basically takes a WAV file called the specific impulse file, which people record in real spaces, usually with a very, very sharp sound like a hand clap or a pistol shot or somebody popping a balloon. And then they do a recording of how the sound of that sound dies away. And then you drop that recording into a convolution reverb, and the reverb will then behave like it was that space. So you can make your recordings or one particular track sound like it was recorded in, well, I've got things like the nave of St Albans Cathedral or the Hamilton Mausoleum in Scotland, which used to be in the records as the most reverberant natural space on Earth, but it's been superseded. It's been superseded by the ex-MOD diesel oil storage tanks, which are now empty, in Inchindown in Scotland. And to get into them, you have to crawl down a tunnel that's 3 feet high, and you basically have to lie on a trolley and be wheeled into these storage tanks. And the decay time on the Inchindown oil tanks is on the order of minutes. It's ridiculous. I mean, it becomes too... field trip, Chris Mel says. There is a brilliant book which I will put on the notes to this episode because I can't remember who wrote it, which is basically about a world of sound. And this guy actually went to the Inchindown tanks and took a tenor sax with him and recorded it inside. But he said he had to throw all his clothes away afterwards because the reason the storage tanks are so reverberant is that the concrete they're made out of them has been saturated with diesel oil for the last 30 or 40 years, and it is totally reflective. So, but the trouble is it's also diesel oil, so it's everywhere. Mel says worth it. You know what? If I was given the opportunity, I wouldn't turn it down. I really wouldn't turn it down. If somebody out there is watching this, can get me access to the Inchindown oil tanks so I can make noises in there, I'm for it. And I am sure Mel would be too. David says probably somewhat toxic. Yeah, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. Don't bother about that. So I fell in love with the reverb. The cinematic piano patch on the Korg has been one of my favourites since I got the Korg, and that was over a decade ago now, which is saying something. And when I dropped it in the track with a little bit of EQ, because obviously you're going to put some EQ on it, the difference in how the track sounded, and you'll notice I've got everything frozen because, like I was saying, I don't have trouble with the BBC Symphony Orchestra taking lots of resources. The stuff that really eats processing power, as far as I'm concerned, is the Labs plugins. I mean, they're gorgeous, but good God, it doesn't half push my system. Watch the CPU meter in the top corner there. It's currently at 1%. And that's with running the live stream and everything else. It's the total CPU usage of the system. So when I run it and it starts doing lots of Labs plugin stuff, it tends to get a bit heated. So this is the full track. actually remembered to unmute my microphone that time. So, yeah, a few things to note on that. I got rid of the Arturia CZ101 emulation. A, because it was laggy because of the ADSR envelope for that patch. B, it was basically tromping all over everything else. It was just too unsubtle. So I've replaced that with one track from the JX3P and one bass line from the Juno 106, which I've ramped up there because they were just too quiet. So let's just see what they're like a bit louder. That's better. I quite like that. So it's funny how just changing one instrument completely changed the character of the track, and all the, yeah, Mel says I like the sound, the slight crunch. There's still a slight crunch there. The JX is worth its weight in gold. It was such an amazing synthesizer for its time. It blows the Juno out of the water. I think it even blows the Juno 60 out of the water in terms of its oscillators and the filters on it. But another reason why the character of the track I think has changed is because rather than using the push to play the virtual instrument on the Labs plugin, I'm actually using the Korg, so it's a real 88 key weighted keyboard, and I was using chords and more complicated fingerings, and it's subtle, but there's a difference between just pushing one or two notes at the same time, which, I mean, you can do more on the Korg. And to hark back to the Project RNL video, or the AL Armia video that I talked about a couple of weeks ago with Jordan Rudess, doing a keyboard solo on one of these things. Proper keyboard still wins for me. You know, it's just, in the past, it's been the faff of having all of this stuff not set up at a moment's notice, but now I've got it all set up at a moment's notice. So yeah, I am a really happy bunny in here at the moment. I've spent quite a bit of money doing it, but the challenge over the next 6 months will be to put that money to good use and hopefully, you know, make music that people will want to listen to. And that, at the end of the day, is kind of why I do this. It's nice to make music that I like, but I really appreciate people taking the time to come and listen to what I'm doing. And, you know, going on Bandcamp or SoundCloud or Spotify or Amazon Music or Tidal or any of the other stuff, any platforms that my music is on, and I am on those platforms, please hunt it out and listen to it. So, yeah, it's come a long way, that track, and I am really happy with that. I think that one in particular, I don't need to fiddle with anymore. I think that one's done. The blue, just in case anybody's wondering, just means that the track is frozen. So it's basically been rendered out as a WAV file. And Ableton is just playing back the audio rather than playing all the processing or the instrument or anything else that's in it. But it means that the only things that I can now, I mean, I can unfreeze them and change them, obviously, but the only things that I do on these frozen tracks now is just adjust the volume in automation, if that's necessary. So Mel says it's solid. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really pleased with that one. So that's 6 tracks down for the new album. So I've got another 4 to do. I've got a title for one track, which is going to be called Spindles, which I was talking about, which is a particular form of EEG activity that you get when you're asleep, which apparently plays a big role in restorative sleep. And then I've got another 3 tracks to come up with, and I have absolutely no idea where they are going to come from, so it'll be interesting to see where those end up. But so what is it now? It's coming up on 20:55, so I've been going for what, about an hour and 25 minutes? Mel's just posted a single word, and that word is ambient. Or even better, ambient. Which is nice if you can get it. I'm actually sleeping really well this week. I've changed from one medication to the other, and it's knocked me out like a light. I get to sleep in minutes rather than hours. The reason I'm wearing 2 watches is that I have my Orange Monster, which I have had for years, and is just me. And when I got ill a couple of years ago, I bought a fitness tracker. So rather than wearing 2 watches on one hand, which some people do, that's why I've got this on this hand, because it tracks how many steps I've done, it tracks how well I sleep, and this week it's been going, dude, what's happening? Are you going to bed 2 hours earlier than you have been? I'm not. I'm just falling asleep 2 hours earlier than I have been. So Mel says, I do some weird shit on ambient. Yeah. You are the person who introduced me to the mythology of the ambient walrus, are you not? I'm pretty sure you are. It is, by all accounts, a very, very strange medication, and I think I'll probably stay away from it. So, coming up on an hour and a half, I'm going to call it quits for tonight. I've enjoyed hanging out. Mel says, yay, that walrus and I were fast friends. There you go. I've really enjoyed tonight. I've had a good day. I've got a lot of stuff done. I'm losing my voice, which is another reason I'm going to call it a quits for tonight. I'm going to sit in a very steamy bath and read a book for half an hour or so, I think. I've got some more stuff to share with you, but don't forget, on Sunday at 9 p.m. BST, so 10 p.m. Central European time, and what did I say? 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be doing a 50/90 podcast on Sunday. I mean, it's Sunday. The weekend's drawing to a close. You're going to want something to pep you up, because you know you've got to got off to work on the Monday morning. Well, maybe you haven't. I certainly haven't. So, it won't be late. It'll just be an hour tops, where I'll just go over 1 or 2 quick things that will help you have a successful 50/90 if you want to start songwriting, if you want to start music production, if you want to just start making your own music at home. Tune in on Sunday. That's the whole point of why I want to do this, is to get other people having as much fun doing this sort of stuff as I am doing this sort of stuff. So until Sunday at 9 p.m. BST on Twitch TV, and then uploaded afterwards on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to follow, please. I will just bid you good night. Stay safe, stay sane, stay well, and have a good rest of the week.